In this video, you will learn about Plato, his contributions, his idealism, and his life events. You will see how he developed his theory of forms, his epistemology of knowledge, his division of labor, where we explore the ideas and lives of the greatest thinkers of all time. In this video, we will talk about Plato, one of the most influential philosophers in history. Plato was born in Athens, Greece, around 428 BC, and died there in 348 BC. He was a student of Socrates, who taught him how to question everything and seek the truth, and a teacher of Aristotle, who would later develop his own system of logic and science. Plato wrote many dialogues where he expressed his views on various topics such as ethics, politics, metaphysics, epistemology, and aesthetics. He also founded the Academy, the first institution of higher learning in the Western world. In this video, we will focus on three aspects of Plato's philosophy: his contributions to society, his theory of idealism, and his life events. Plato's contributions. The theory of forms. Plato believed that there is a higher realm of reality where the perfect and eternal forms or ideas of everything exist. These forms are the true essence of things, and the physical world is just a shadow or imitation of them. For example, there is a form of beauty, justice, goodness, and so on that are more real and more valuable than any particular instance of them in the material world. Plato also argued that the highest form is the good, or the one, which is the source of all being and knowledge. The Epistemology of Knowledge. Plato claimed that true knowledge is not derived from the senses, but from the intellect. He distinguished between opinion, which is based on perception and belief, and knowledge, which is based on reason and understanding. He also proposed the Allegory of the cave, where he compared the human condition to that of prisoners who only see the shadows of the forms on the wall of a cave and think that they are the reality. Only by escaping the cave and seeing the forms themselves can one attain true knowledge and wisdom. The division of labor. Plato advocated for a rational and harmonious organization of society, where each person performs the function that suits their natural abilities and talents. He divided the population into three classes: the rulers, who are the philosophers and guardians of the city; the auxiliaries, who are the soldiers and defenders of the city; and the producers, who are the farmers, artisans, and merchants of the city. He also assigned different virtues to each class: wisdom for the rulers, courage for the auxiliaries, and moderation for the producers. He believed that justice is achieved when each class does its own work and does not interfere with the others. The theory of love. Plato explored the nature and purpose of love in his dialogue symposium, where he presented different speeches by different characters on the topic. He introduced the concept of Platonic love, which is a spiritual and intellectual attraction that transcends physical desire. He also described the ladder of love, which is a process of ascending from the love of a particular beautiful person to the love of beauty itself, and ultimately to the love of the good, which is the highest form of love and the ultimate goal of life. Plato's idealism. Idealism is a philosophical view that holds that reality is fundamentally mental rather than material. In other words, idealists believe that the ultimate nature of things is not physical, but mental or spiritual. There are different types of idealism, depending on how they relate the mental and the physical aspects of reality. For example, subjective idealism holds that only the mind and its ideas exist, and that the physical world is just a projection of the mind. Objective idealism holds that there is a universal mind or spirit that creates and sustains the physical world, and that we can access it through intuition or revelation. Platonic idealism, or Platonic realism, is a form of objective idealism that affirms that abstractions or ideal forms are more basic to reality than the things we perceive. While subjective idealists and phenomenalists tend to privilege sensory experiences over abstracta. Personalism, meanwhile, sees persons or selves as fundamental. A common distinction is between subjective and objective forms of idealism. Plato's idealism is based on his theory of forms, which we discussed earlier. He argued that the forms are the true reality, and that the physical world is just a copy or imitation of them. He also claimed that the forms are accessible only to the mind, not to the senses, and that we can attain knowledge of them through reason and dialectic. Plato's idealism influenced many later philosophers, such as Plotinus, Augustine, Descartes, Leibniz, Kant, Hegel, and others. His childhood and education. Plato was born into a wealthy and noble family in Athens. His father Ariston died when he was young, and his mother Pyrrhiction remarried Pyrilampes, a prominent politician. Plato received a classical education in philosophy, poetry, and gymnastics, and was influenced by the teachings of Socrates, Cratylus, and the Pythagoreans. His travels and encounters. After the death of Socrates in 399 BC, Plato left Athens and traveled to various places, such as Megara, Cyrene, Italy, Sicily, and Egypt. He met and learned from many philosophers, mathematicians, and mystics, such as Theodorus, Archytas, Echecrates, and others. He also had a complex relationship with the rulers of Syracuse, Dionysius I and II, who invited him to advise them on political reforms, but also imprisoned and exiled him several times. His founding of the Academy, around 387 BC, Plato returned to Athens and founded his philosophical school, the Academy, in a grove dedicated to the hero Academus. The Academy was the first institution of higher learning in the Western world and offered a curriculum that included mathematics, astronomy, biology, logic, ethics, politics, and metaphysics. Plato presided over the Academy until his death and taught many students, the most famous of whom was Aristotle, who later founded his own school, the Lyceum. His death and legacy. Plato died in 348 or 347 BCE at the age of 80, in his bed, surrounded by his friends and disciples. He was buried in the Academy, and his grave became a place of pilgrimage for many admirers. His works were preserved and transmitted by his followers and became the basis of the Platonic tradition, which influenced many schools of thought, such as Neoplatonism, Christian Platonism, Islamic Platonism, and Renaissance Platonism. Plato is widely regarded as one of the greatest and most original philosophers of all time, and his ideas have shaped the development of Western culture, science, and civilization. In this video, we have learned about Plato, his contributions, his idealism, and his life events. We have seen how he developed his theory of forms, his epistemology of knowledge, his division of labor.